The Lunchroom on RCI, Monday to Friday, 12:45 to 2 p.m. The Lunchroom, informative, enlightening, provocative, engaging. The Lunchroom on RCI, food for thought. The station that gives you, more lunch.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Urban Dulaw, and I am sitting in for Calix George Jr., and I shall be here and working with the show until the last day of this month. As usual, I start off by giving you my 4 caveats, what will essentially determine the timbre of the show. Number 1, I hold that nothing is absolute. Of course, I offer a corollary to that, and it is that a solution is adequate provided it solves the problem. Second caveat is that reality is composed by the individual. Thirdly, cultural influences more often than not determine our actions and our reactions. And the fourth and final caveat is that the supernatural does not exist. To start off, we go into this day in history. Today is, of course, the 18th of February, 2025. In 1779, Trinidad is surrendered to a British fleet under the command of Sir Ralph Abercrombie. I have heard the word Abercrombie associated with the St. Mary's College, and I am sure somebody will sort of help me know whether that the Abercrombie associated with the St. Mary's College is the same Sir Ralph Abercrombie that was commanding the British fleet. In 1879, on this date, the French author Frédéric Bartholdi is awarded a U.S. patent for his design for the Statue of Liberty. In 1885, Mark Twain publishes The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn in the U.S. One of the most famous statements that I know that came from Mark Twain was that if you have nothing to say, say nothing. In 1927, U.S. and Canada opened diplomatic relations. For those of you, I should say, who are familiar with the history, would know that at one time, the U.S. and Canada were like dogs in a fight. Because, of course, the U.S. had become independent and Canada was still a British colony. In 1977, the West Indian fast bowlers Joel Garner, who took 4 for 130 in that match, and Colin Croft debuted in the first Test match versus Pakistan at Bridgetown, Barbados. You would know that Garner and Croft became 2 of the most feared bowlers in cricket for the West Indies. In 2019, on this date, before I go to 2019, let me go to 1986. In 1986, on this date, anti-smoking ads were aired for the first time on TV, and it featured Yul Brynner, who eventually died from smoking-induced lung cancer on the 10th of October 1985. In 2019, the British Parliament Committee issued scathing reports on Facebook accusing the company of breaking privacy laws and calling for new regulations. In 2024, a poll by historians ranked Joe Biden as the 14th best U.S. president, with Donald Trump being ranked dead last. It is instructive perhaps, that Donald Trump regained the White House, and some people are deeming him to be one of the best presidents ever. However, as anything else, time will tell. Still the honeymoon period, and so we will see what will happen as far as that is concerned. So these were some of the events that happened on this day in history, and we now move on to the dish of the day, which is sponsored by Tiles Plus.
One test for your home, I see. Bathroom, kitchen, pantry. Need test for your balcony. Come down to Test Plus, satisfaction guarantee. Test Plus, Test Plus, Test Plus. Big test with unbeatable cost. Customer service, A plus. Need all kind of tests. Come down to Test Plus. We also got gasway and vanity. Books, doors, you'll see. Come down to my nobody. We got the best as an island. Trust me. We are located Land Street in Castries, Bosses Grocery Lanes, and Slack Street in Beaufort. Telephone number 453-7939. Test Plus.
Serving now, the Daily Dish.
And of course, we have the daily dish, which comes to us today. I sound like a preacher. Which comes to us today from Matthew chapter 7 and verse 12. And it reads, "So in everything, do to others what you would have them do to you. For this sums up the law and the prophets." Many of us have the other version, the same thing, of course, but we call it differently. We call it the golden rule. Do unto others what you would have them do unto you. I think that while this is sound advice, I am not convinced that it is the best advice. And of course, let us face it, we can always improve on the way we look at things, and we can always make changes because, as I said earlier on, nothing is absolute. I would like to propose that while this golden rule, which, as I said, came initially from Matthew chapter 7, verse 12, while this rule, the golden rule, is predicated on a principle of equality, I will suggest that the principle of equity is a better principle to be guided by, and therefore we ought to re-examine that golden rule which says that do unto others what you would have them do unto you. In other words, equity, which essentially says, the principle underlying equity, is that people should receive things that is meeting their needs, as opposed to equality, which says that people should all receive the same thing. Now, I appreciate that it is a lot easier for us to operate on the basis of equality. But at the end of the day, is that the best we can do? And is that what we should be aiming for? Let me give you a very simple example of equity versus equality. So we have 100 diapers to give away in a community of 10 people, 10 women. Let's just make it let's say 10 women. We have 100 diapers to give away. Equality says that you should give every woman 10 diapers, notwithstanding that it is only one woman out of the 10 who has a child or a person who requires diapers. So you see, with equality, that's a fairly easy thing to do. We do not have to take into account their differences. We do not have to take into account their needs. We simply do, do, do everybody gets the same thing. I am suggesting that as we move forward, as we contemplate how we interact with others, that we need to pay attention to what they need rather than just distribute things on the basis of equality. Actually, and I will not go into it, but the principle of looking at things, distributing things along the lines of equality, equity has another, or equity has another tier, and we are told and we recognize that when we look at how we distribute things, we also need to take into account justice. But I will not go into that, at least not today. But essentially, justice says that you really ought to have a level playing field for everybody in the first place. So you prepare a level playing field so that people do not now have specific needs, because as you contemplate justice and as you look for justice, you ensure that everybody has the same access to everything. That was your dish for the day. That was brought to you by Dice Plus.
This has been The Daily Dish.
One tiles for your home, I see. Bathroom, kitchen, pantry. Need tiles for your balcony. Come down to Tiles Plus, satisfaction guarantee. Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus. Big tiles with unbeatable cost. Customer service, A plus with all kind of tiles. Come down to Tiles Plus. We are so glad gasway and vanity. Books, doors, you'll see. Come down to mind nobody. We got the best tiles on island. Trust me. We are located Land Street in Castries, Bosses Jugo's Lanes, and Slack Street in Beaufort. Telephone number 453-7939. Tiles Plus.
Welcome back to the lunchroom. My name is Ubandolo, and I am sitting in for Calix George Jr. As always, whatever topics that I take on any one day, if there are things that I spoke about in some previous broadcasts and you want to raise a point on it because always possible that at the time you didn't have access to a phone or something, I am always willing to entertain and to talk about that new topic. The address, sorry, the telephone number to call is 452 3046. 452 3046. Today, I want to focus on what is called emotional intelligence. You may recall that sometime last week I spoke about artificial intelligence. Yesterday, sort of a askance way, I spoke about regular intelligence, particularly as it related to school education and the relationship between education and jobs and so on. But today I'm going to talk about emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence refers primarily to how a person manages his or her emotions, as well as how well a person recognizes the emotions of others. So we find and we know that there are some people who seem to get along with other people so much easier than others. Sometimes we call such people the life of the party, the people who make it happen, things like that. But there are some things related to emotional intelligence that we should be aware of, and that we should, as difficult as it may be, because let's face it, folks, in much the same way that some people start off having a higher IQ intelligent quotient than other people, some people start off with a higher EQ or emotional quotient, sorry, emotional intelligence, if you wish. Some people start off with a higher EI than other people. Nonetheless, in much the same way that we can become more adept at doing things that require IQ, right, practice and so on, and becoming aware, we can also improve our EI or EQ. I'll stick with EI, emotional intelligence. There are things we should be aware of that will help our EI. One important thing, perhaps the most important of them all, is that we need to be aware and understand our own emotions. We may be thinking, why things are really rough, I'm not feeling too well, what is going on? But because we are not aware of the actual, of how we feel about something, because we are not aware of what is actually influencing our mood at a given time, it becomes extremely difficult for us to correct it or for us to get assistance. I've said, well, not on the show, but I've understood that solving a problem is 99% becoming aware or knowing what the problem is. Anybody who does, for example, troubleshooting, who has to fix up a car or anything you have to fix up, anything you have to mend, if you do not know what is causing the problem, it will be very difficult for you to solve that problem. And that also holds for the way we relate to people. If we are not aware of the thing or the things that are influencing our mood, if we don't even know specifically what our mood is at any given time, if we don't know how our thoughts and our behavior are being influenced by our emotions, then we have a lot of difficulty even helping other people to help us. Because imagine you are having some issues and you're interacting with somebody. It could be a significant other, could be just a co-worker, could be just somebody on the street, somebody you don't know. And you are not in a good mood. Almost invariably, the other person almost senses that you are not in a good mood. And if you are not even aware of what is causing the problem, what is causing the mood, it'll be difficult for you to be able to provide any assistance in dealing and ameliorating the situation. So, emotional intelligence, therefore, an important component of emotional intelligence is absolutely knowing, being aware of how you feel. what is causing your thoughts and your behavior. A second component of emotional intelligence, in other words, how you feel, how you interact with people, how you allow people to interact with you. A second component is self-regulation. Now, as we said, or as I said earlier on, if you are not aware of what is bothering you, if you're not even aware of how you feel, if you're not even aware that you're not 100%, as it were, then it will be difficult for you to take any action that will help regularize your own emotions, the way you feel, the way you react, the way you behave. Important, very, very important, is that as you begin to self-regulate, as you begin to be aware of your emotions, you are then better able to manage stress and to stay calm under pressure and to think before you act. Now, at this point, I want to make you aware of a phenomenon which is called the amygdala ambush. The amygdala ambush. The amygdala is a gland. Well, really, again, I'm not a physician, so I'm not in a position to go into all of the details. And even if I were a physician, it's not a time to really go into all of the details of the amygdala. But the amygdala is a gland that essentially serves as a go-between, let's say, a go-between the impulses that you receive that come to you through your senses and the frontal lobe. So most times, what happens is that you get an impulse, you see something, you hear something, you feel something, you smell something, etc., etc. And the amygdala will take those sensations, stimulus, if you wish, and pass it on to the what is described as the frontal lobe, the thinking part of the brain, the rational part of the brain, the part where decisions are made, and so on and so on. So most times the amygdala will do that. However, there are times when the amygdala will just take action, on its own without actually getting instruction or seeking for advice from the frontal lobe. So the amygdala, in a sense, has the power to make quick action. Now, you understand that as we deal with things around us, there are times when it is to our benefit for the amygdala to take quick action. So, for example, you touch a hot thing, you have to be able to drop the thing as quickly as possible so that the seconds or the microseconds that it would take to get word from the brain to say, oh, this thing is hot, drop it. The amygdala and other parts of the nervous system take executive directions or actions before consulting the boss, the frontal lobe. So there are times when this amygdala action is useful. However, and I am practically sure that most of us have experienced the amygdala ambush, where we have done something on the spur of the moment, to use that term. We just did it without thinking, and we live to regret it. And very often, when that happens, you will hear things like, "Kasa, how could I have done that? How did I, what came over me?" If, however, we have become fully aware of the influence and the possible actions of the amygdala, we are less likely to take actions that we will live to regret, because the amygdala just took over and did things that we didn't think, or in the long run would not be useful. So, the second thing that we have to do as we seek to improve our EI is to become aware of the way we react. We have to become aware of the things that, and the term that's used very often is what triggers us. So you know that when you listen to some particular music, when you read certain things, you're going to get angry, you're going to get annoyed, the stress levels will go up. Avoid that. You know that a situation is going to cause you to be upset, because again, you notice that you know that you know, which comes back to the first point I made in terms of becoming aware of your emotions and what causes the emotions and so on. So if you know that something is likely to trigger you, avoid it. You know, the third component of having a high EI, in other words, being able to interact with people in a better way, in a more productive way, is a question of empathy. I am mindful that some people may not make a distinction between empathy and sympathy, but that is a very, very important distinction. Empathy refers to the ability to take into account the person's likely reaction, to be aware of how the person will react in a given situation, and to express your thoughts that would be, and you would react in a way that would show that you understand the person's position. You understand what emotions the person is going through. You understand what reactions the person is likely to show. That is empathy. Sympathy, on the other hand, is fundamentally feeling sorry for the person. You wish it didn't happen. And if you caused it, you regret causing it. And you pledge not to do it again, and so on. So that is sympathy. Empathy is a lot deeper. And it's also a lot more meaningful, because empathy would suggest that you actually are feeling some of the emotions that the person is feeling. In that regard, there's a very interesting phenomenon. I would put it as that, and it is something that the biologists call mirror neurons. Mirror neurons. And the mirror neurons are really one of the keys to empathy, to expressing empathy. Um, Very simple example I will use. Sometimes our feelings, the way, our reactions are actually determined when we experience a reaction from another person. For example, I will tell you that if I am looking at somebody cry, eventually I will cry too. I mean, and it's not because I am particularly sensitive or anything like that. It is simply that as far as that component of my mirror neurons are highly sensitized, and so when it comes to feeling that that aspect of feeling the crying, oh yeah, I will cry. So in fact, I'll watch a movie and I mean tears will be rolling down my face. Okay. But that is what mirror neurons do. They actually enable you to behave in a way that is consistent with the emotions that are being expressed by another person. So that is all part and parcel, as I said, of being empathetic. As a whole part and parcel of showing empathy, and that is all part and parcel of what makes a number of persons form a community. Because members in a community do not behave solo, they behave in a way that is consistent with the empathy that they feel, the cohesion that they feel with each other. And as we continue in a little while, after we had a weather report, we will look at some other aspects that can help develop and that comprises what we could describe as emotional intelligence.
Island style. We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, we'll have to make the right choice. Island style. We got the time that will make you happy. Island style. Oh yeah. We make your dream come alive. In Island style.
We have times and insects, mixes and grow. Everything you need is on the outside. For the best price and the latest style. Take a little drive down to Island Style car.
We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, quality, price, service, choice. It's all an Island Style.
Visit us at our showrooms in Bellarosa, Rodney Bay, on the John Compton Highway, Cass Street, and behind Ruby's Gas Station on the Library Viewport Highway. So call us on 450-452 or 453-TILE. Island Style, Tile and Bath. When you think tile, think Island Style. This is Radio Caribbean International. It's now time for the weather news.
National Coastal 1.1 is now time for your weather report as of 12 noon today, presented by Island Style Talemba. The forecast for Sunusha Valley for the next 24 hours, winds will be blowing from between the east and east-northeast near 22 miles per hour or 35 kilometers per hour with occasional gusts. The weather fair and breezy, occasionally becoming cloudy with a few showers. And there is an advisory in the air which reads small craft operators and sea beavers are advised to exercise extreme caution due to brisk winds and locally rough seas. The forecast for Lesser Antilles, fair and breezy, occasionally becoming cloudy with a few showers. And the weather summary, the Atlantic high pressure system will continue to generate moderate to brisk easterly winds and locally rough seas across the eastern Caribbean region during the next couple of days. Patches of low-level clouds drifting along the wind flow will cause widely scattered showers over the region during the forecast period. And this was your weather report as of 12 noon today, presented by Island Style Talemba.
This has been RCI's Weather News. For more information, call the Weather Hotline at 454-3452. RCI 101 number 1.
Island style. Yeah. We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, yeah. We'll have to make the right choice. Island style. Whoa. We got the time that will make you happy. Island style. Oh yeah. We make your dream come alive. In Island style.
We have tiles and thin sets, mixes and ground. Everything you need is on the outside. For the best price and the latest style. Take a little drive down to Island Style car.
We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, yeah. Quality, price, service, choice. It's all an Island Style.
Visit us at our showrooms in Bellarosa, Rodney Bay, on the John Compton Highway, Cass Street, and behind Ruby's Gas Station on the Library Viewfort Highway. So call us on 450-452 or 453-TILE. Island Style, Tile and Bath. When you think tile, think Island Style.
Welcome back. You're in the lunchroom with Urban Dodo, and I'm sitting in for Calix George Jr. We have been speaking about the whole question of emotional intelligence, and so far we have looked at 3 components. One is being aware, 2 is regulation, and the third one we looked at was empathy, having empathy for other people. We must also understand that our motivation, and of course that is a component that we, each individual, has absolute control over, total control over. We have found, or I should say not we, but people who look into this thing, have found that others are likely to have a better perspective or perception of those who are doing their best to achieve. To put it in a different way, I suppose, vernacular, we don't like lazy people. And what it means is that if, as an individual, if you know of someone who is really making an effort to achieve, you are more likely to have good relations, or you are more likely to seek to assist such a person. It behoves us, therefore, as we seek to develop our EQ, for us to show others that we are serious about achieving our accomplishments, or achieving our goals. Sorry, that's what I should say. It means then that people with high EIs, emotional intelligence, high emotional intelligent people, they do not allow failure to prevent them from being optimistic. High emotionally intelligent people have a tendency to be optimistic. And again, from our experience, we know that we do not like to be around people who believe that we will not succeed. Some people, I think there's a term recently that has come about, and there are such things as being toxic. We do not like to be around toxic people. That being the case, it means that if we do not show a willingness, an ability to fight or to keep working towards success, then we are not going to be as welcomed in a group as otherwise. Remember the number to call if you want to have a say on the topic, which is emotional intelligence, is 452-3046. So, as we continue to look at our emotional intelligence, as we continue to take stock of ourselves, and again, I go back to the whole question, taking stock of ourselves, being self-aware. Are we part of the problem by saying that the problem is insurmountable? Essentially, once we conclude that a problem cannot be solved and will not be solved, we are not likely to be able to solve it. So motivation is important. Motivation endears us to the group because our own motivation will encourage others to put in their best effort. People are not likely to put in their best effort if they think that some people within the group, some people are not giving their best effort. And we don't want to be contributing to that thinking. Remember, the number to call is 452-3046. Let's have some discussion on the whole matter of emotional intelligence. A fifth factor that contributes to a person's emotional intelligence is how they manage their relationships with other people. There is a chart that describes how we can interact with people, and it actually has two factors. One, for those I imagine that I can say boxes, or if you wish, axes. So there are two axes. Let's say for those of us who are familiar with maps, you could look at one axis, the y-axis, as having how much you want to succeed, how much you want to achieve the goal, and the other axis being how much you value the relationship with the individual. We have a call, so we'll take the call and we'll discuss afterwards. Hello, good afternoon. You're in the lunchroom.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. That is the same gentleman yesterday. I just give you a reminder. I want to do it. That's so interesting what I talked to you yesterday, and I so much comment I have, and I have to comment on something else because more I have, let me deliver.
Okay.
Let me give you something. That is about our generation. So when you, as you say, not agree and agree, I like to deal with you. I mentioning today about how the development in between colored and non-colored.
When you say non-colored, you talking about race there? You talking about race?
I don't know either because I hear your voice a little low. I don't know.
Okay, sorry. Maybe I had my head bent down because I wanted to write, because I noticed when you say something, I have to write it down to make sure I remember. So go ahead.
Yes.
You should be hearing me better now.
And I see they look at us as a hill to climb. And let me see, I watch in not only a commentary, a history about colored people. And I see them people as unique people, 100% unique people. And other that we call, how you call it, white people, they don't terrorize the people. I don't know how come.
Mm.
And then you see, when I get another one from the Adventists, always say these things. the young people of today is young people of Viper. But I haven't made any comment to any of them to tell them these words, write it down and throw it to the sea. Because there is our young sisters, they make them sign a lot of treaties. And then when they rise again, I mean the young start to rise again, them treated the young sisters as an act of the son of as a violence people. So you can see they separating with as race. And that we will comment about that one. But let me give only one again, and then we can comment about it. But just now, the other one is about. It almost passed me. The other one is about. It just passed me by. Okay, let me make another comment. I'm concerned about what I see there. What to understand it.
Okay,
between the terrorizing and then people who are unique people. I want to hear your comment. I'll put the phone down. I there with you.
Okay, so. I would have preferred if you had stayed on so that because there are a couple of questions I want to ask. But anyhow, I will say, and then if you care to, you may call back to respond.
I appreciate that. Thanks.
Okay,
that makes sense. All right, thanks.
Because when you speak about like the young people, what I heard you say basically is that they're terrorizing the young people. Is that what you said?
What I say there, colored people are unique and natural people.
Okay, all right.
Because them white people, you can watching that they terrorize the people to build the colony. Like St. Lucia. I give example. America, there was black people there, and when you watching, black people always have the Bible to read.
Okay.
And they taking the Bible from them, and they put it in a church, and make them worship idol.
But I want just now.
Yes.
Yeah, I now I understand one of the things you say. Let me explore a little bit with you. I when you say black people are unique people, do you mean that all black people are the same?
I believe all of them are same. Let me give you an example.
Okay, well, hold on. Now that you've made a point, okay. But it seems to me that, let's say, people from Ethiopia are entirely different from people, say, from the Kalahari Desert. People from, for example, West Africa, Nigeria, and these places on the West Coast, among themselves have differences. So how do you tell me that they are unique?
I hold to my point. They are unique because of the system of English separating the world in half. So they're making them people turn among black people said be race among one another. So you can see the Ethiopian, they are nice people. When you go into Sahel, you get a different people. It's because the generation already shifting so much.
I understand you there.
Okay.
So hold on,
right.
let me ask you, because you see one of the things about communicating with people, when there's not sufficient understanding, let the person who don't understand ask the question, because if you say more, you then confuse the person even more.
Oh, I understand.
Okay, so you're saying to me that the Ethiopian people, for my money, if you put two people, one from Ethiopia and one, let's say one from South Africa, like a Zulu or something like that, you put these two people, and there is no way I'm going to take the Ethiopian to be a Zulu. So how can you tell me that they're unique?
So the unique to me is the knowledge and the experience that making people change. Because when you try to, like Ethiopia, never be colonized in England, you might be say, as me, because we just born yesterday, we can see the people like the Ethiopian, look different the others. And we never know the history, how they used to live, the culture. You know what that changes in mankind? When you interfere in the culture, that's what that make the change. You can be Zulu, you can be whatever it is. But when people interfere in your culture, it's changing the entire place.
But I'm hearing you, and I agree with you totally, because as a matter of fact, sometime when Shazi was here, I think we made the point that it is unfortunate that very often the colonizing country will impose its culture on other people, and people think, let me finish.
Okay, I listen to you.
and by imposing their culture on people, people tend to think that that imposed culture is superior to what they had before, and I'm sure I'm almost sure you will agree with me. But
I
it
agree
does
to
not mean,
100%.
huh?
Yes.
Okay, now, but it does not mean that when, for example, the English, we're going to use the English, that when the English went into Africa, that what they found were a set of people who all had the same culture. When people,
Exactly.
when the English people went into or wherever it is, the Europeans went into Africa, right, the African continent, they met a number of different a number of people with different cultures. So, for
Yes.
example, in Nigeria, there are probably at least 300 and something different languages. There are different
Yes.
religions. They have different customs. So it does not mean that everybody, if everybody in Nigeria, and I get your point that perhaps the even the country Nigeria was a country that was divided or devised by the Europeans, because
Yes.
before that you had different tribes and so on. But to tell me that everybody in Africa is unique and had the same culture, I cannot
No,
accept that.
oh, I say to my mind. When, okay, okay, let me. They say a man changes weight. It's not very nice, but I don't change my weight. But I tell you, in the spiritual, the culture, when you pay, it make the difference. But in the spirit, if nothing done involved in the culture, to their spirit, they are one mankind in a different cultures. So okay, I put it easy for you. Yes.
and
So
and
I
yet
have my
still and
culture,
yet
you have
still
your
okay,
culture,
just
but
hold
we
on.
are spiritual are one.
Okay, just hold on, Now, I must admit that I watched a lot of Nigerian movies, but even in Nigeria, right, there are people from certain tribes or traditional tribes in Nigeria who don't want their children to marry other people from Nigeria. So why? So guys, don't play with me,
No,
so
because you have a
and
good
I,
point.
let
But
me
sometimes,
tell
but
you,
okay, all right,
you,
Mr.
you see
But
that
you
you see that laugh you give there. That laugh tell me
uh,
everything, eh?
yes, but what you said, but you write 1% too, 1 2. Let me tell you something too.
Uh-huh.
You brought this thing up and now you make me touch in something that makes sense. So you see, if all right, okay, a small example. You have a set of rich people, and one of the men can marry another woman, but a woman that marry any other culture, is shifting the culture of your riches, your riches. Yes. So when as you mentioned, it's a good thing you say there. Sometimes in that culture they don't want you to go and marry that people on that side. Because sometimes when you marry that person aside, the culture will change. You understand?
Yeah, but
That
you
that's my mind, eh?
yeah, I'm
That's what I
agree.
correct.
You see, the thing about it is that the way you listen to me. I like that. I like talking to you because you see, you give me
It's,
hints. Just give me hints, and I know where you're going and where I should go with you. Because you
yes.
said, for example, that you don't like to change your tongue or your word or something like that. But I
Mm.
think it's because you check where you're coming from, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that for too long we have always looked at in fact we talk about Africa.
Right.
And people say go back to Africa, as if Africa is one country, one set of cultures, no, Africa is
Because
rich. Africa has so
let
many
me
different countries.
yes, but let me cut the short there because airtime is important, and then you have to use it. Somebody maybe can make contribution too. So let me make a contribution faster.
Yes.
Another thing again, if you watch the culture is like a four wheel. So like Saint Lucia, if you get a book in 1836 or 1946, whatever it is, you will see Saint Lucia would have people already. So when the people come there, they don't terrorize the people and they build another colony. So they build another culture. So you can see we today don't even know where we stand. We go into school, we don't learn about anything about our ancestors. Only what we're learning, go to school to have a job. Go to school to have to earn a job, is not to earn a trade. So you still have all your education, you have no trade. So our school system have to try to change the curriculum in the school, have every kindergarten. You know what I listen to? I listen to a man that going to Africa, but that man is from China. And he said something at the man, 100%. He said, when you educating people about education, give them both education and educating. We only have education. So when you come up from school, you see the boy on the block. They're full of education. Give them a work to do. They're watching it like that, they cannot do it. Give an engineer a work, he cannot do it. But he can tell you how to do it. So the system we have have us terrorizing just to build another concept. That's true. That go to the same place again. That our culture, they interfere in our culture so much. So they dividing us so much in our culture. We don't even know where we live. Everybody is stressed out.
I noticed you went back to the point you made yesterday. That's good. At least you consistent.
No, as I tell you, yesterday. So anytime I chat in today, yesterday must come up because I have
a problem. Not a problem. But let me tie up. Let me make a match. And I'm hearing you and I'm agreeing with you. Some of the things you say, when I agree with you, I agree with you. And then, of course, when I don't agree with you, I tell you I don't agree, and then we can talk. But in terms, hold on. In terms of the books we get, I am tending towards agreeing with you that too often the books that we talk about and the books that we read in terms of our history begins when we were taken from Africa and brought to America, according to Bob Marley, and we were brought to the Caribbean. But the history that we have learned begins with Christopher Columbus. And that history, let me finish, but I don't like you for that. That's one thing I don't like about you. When I'm making a point, let me make it. Because I know you like the point I'm going to make, so you want to come and help me. Let me make my point. So to some extent, one must agree and accept with what you're saying, because the bulk of the history that we did in school, at least in my time, I can't say maybe it has changed since then, but the history started with Christopher Columbus coming to the Caribbean. And of course, the following the slave trade and so on, which means that we never actually got to understand what was happening, where we came from, before we are actually in the Caribbean. And it is little wonder that a lot of people believe that Africa was all one set of people, right? And so you'd have people make statements to the effect that our brothers sold us into slavery. No, our brothers didn't sell us into slavery, because what we had in Africa, we already had people who were not of the same culture, who were not one community, and what you had were people from one, let's say, community, one tribe, and so on, holding the other people from another tribe. It's much the same way like France and England, let's say. Both France and England have white people, but when France invades England, England invades another place, and so among themselves, all white people, they're invading each other. But you don't have people saying white people sold out white people, right? Because they understand the difference between French and Spain and Portugal and so on. But we want to think that, oh, your black brother sold you. No, my black brother didn't sell me. My black brother, the people who belong to my tribe, were busy fighting, trying for the other tribe not to take me and sell me to the Europeans. I've said a lot. Yeah,
you complete the sentence, not yet?
I finished.
All right. So in that where you is there show that the black people, some of them, as you see in a different culture, when they are about to sell them, because they have them as a community. So when they sell it, they didn't want to go. But as you say, they enslave them to have the culture, because they want them to work for them, because they are okay. For example, if you buy enough vehicles, it's not for your purpose. You will let somebody take your key and go in it. So they keep the people in chain. So they're changing their people culture, and they bring them different places. Like I can name some of the Caribbean, like St. Lucia and different places. And then what they do then? They kill them. Some of them die. You can even see places like Soufrière. Place like when you go in, before you begin Soufrière, not Soufrière, before you reach in Amsterdam, Otabo, that place they call in, there is a cliff there. They say after they show some of them there for them to die, some of them even show themselves and kill themselves because they have too much stress
Yeah. So let me just. Okay.
they
So
invade them.
I will
They
give
change the
you.
culture.
Yeah. So I will support you again and tell you the name of the place is Masekwe, right? Because Masekwe is.
That means massacre.
Okay, no, call it what you want. You didn't
Yeah,
you see you didn't even remember the name. You tell me Otabo, but anyhow.
I pass it every day. I just as I mentioned to you, is the airtime. It
Yes,
makes it a little faster.
yes,
That's why.
but yes. So yes. So in actual fact,
It's
yes,
Masquerade.
that whole thing with massacre and so on does have some history that's related to slavery and the way people went up there. And they didn't mind that. In fact, I'm told that it was the white people, the plantation owners, and so who imported the venomous snakes into that area to prevent the people from running up into the hills. But as you said, we are running out of time, and I want to thank you again for calling.
We were talking
On
about
that.
more about it because the Soufre said I have to tell you a history about why there is name of Soufre.
Okay,
Is that they put the people in a can and they roll them down with nails for them to die. That's why they call them
so
Soufre.
we'll come to that. We'll come to that some other time.
Another time.
Okay. Okay, so
Time go
you
by,
take
we
care of
will say.
yourself and take care. So yes, let me just let me finalize this whole thing, wrap it up as it relates to the question of emotional intelligence. And the last point I wanted to talk about a bit was the matter of social skills. And those social skills would involve managing relationships with people. That would involve, of course, dispute resolution, how you go about resolving your dispute. It also involves effective communication. It involves how you set up teamwork. So we know that people who can communicate well and who can resolve the disputes well and who have ways of dividing their work among them tend to engender good relations with people and with others. The matter of the communication, I will perhaps have another show dealing with just communication, given that we didn't have a lot of time to talk about it. So today, I raised we spoke about emotional intelligence, and um, the important thing about emotional intelligence is that some people say that given a choice between working with somebody who has a high IQ and somebody who has a high EI, emotional intelligence, that they would take the person with the high EI, because the people with the high EI tend to bring value to the group, tends to keep the group more cohesive, and we all know that when a group is working in harmony, that they will produce a lot more than when people are working individual. I think there's a phrase, a gestaltist phrase, that uh, the whole the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Okay, so there is some value added simply because 10 people are working in harmony compared to just 10 individual people working. On that note, I wish you a good afternoon and thank you for listening and being in the lunchroom today, Tuesday, the 18th of February.